A very good morning, my dear friends. Today I want to talk to you about fear. We experience fear of different kinds, right? There's fear of rejection, or fear of stepping out of your comfort zone, or you might even encounter circumstances where you might fear for the safety of your lives. And if there's a little inner kid in you, you may have simpler fears like the dark or creepy crawly insects. I must confess I'm still battling with that one. But coming back to our reflection, in Matthew chapter 7 verses 13 to 14, we see the example of the narrow and wide gates, where Jesus says, "Enter through the narrow gate. For wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it." Most people on such a small, narrow, less traveled road would feel a fear that is rooted in anxiety, which comes from thoughts like, "What will become of me?" or "What will people think of me?" Most times, these are thoughts that stop us dead in our tracks. It stops us from embracing what God is calling us to do. In the Bible, we have seen many great men and women of God who overcame their shortcomings and fear with their simple faith that God is with them. For today's reflection, however, one person especially stood out for me, and that is King David. But before becoming King David, he was just a simple shepherd boy, the youngest son of Jesse. While his older brothers were out fighting a war between the Israelites and the Philistines, David was at home in Bethlehem tending to his father's sheep. And one day, Jesse sends David on an errand to take food to his brothers at the camp. When David arrives at the camp, he sees the Israelites cowering in fear, and he hears about this gigantic 6 feet Philistine warrior called Goliath, who had challenged the Israelites to a fight. David, with no hesitation, says, "Okay, I will go and fight him." Now, anyone in their right mind would think, what would this simple shepherd boy be able to do to a 6 feet warrior? The answer to this we will read in the first book of Samuel, chapter 17, verses 32 to 37, which goes like this. David said to Saul, "Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him." Saul replied, "You are not able to go out against this Philistine and fight him. You are only a young man, and he has been a warrior from his youth." But David said to Saul, "Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it, and killed it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine." And so Saul said to David, "Go, and the Lord be with you." The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine. That was the level of David's faith in God. When he said that, he did not ignore the possibility of death. Rather, he acknowledged that he was taken care of by a God who was even greater than his fear of death. A lot of times in our own lives, out of fear, we tend to stop ourselves from doing certain things, or we tend to leave certain things unsaid. When it comes to exploring new opportunities like a job or a friendship or maybe a potential life partner, the fear of rejection stops us from pursuing some God-given opportunities. When we leave things unsaid or unexplored like that, our mind goes into confusion. And this is where we must remember that God speaks and dwells in clarity. The devil dwells in confusion. The only way he can stop you from doing God's work is by creating confusion in you to enslave you with fear. And so, it is all the more important to remember that God is the truth and the truth will always set you free. So, don't be afraid to speak your mind. Don't be afraid to ask questions. A closed door of any kind is most definitely not easy to embrace. But in those moments, you must remember that our God is a God of plenty. Every rejection you face is a sign of how much He loves you because He has something much greater for you out there. And most times, that closed door is your protection. Also, sometimes we may look around and think that others are so much more talented or more prettier than I am. That is the opponent planting the seed of doubt and inferiority in your mind. In reality, the God of plenty has blessed you with an abundance of unique talents. We just need to be brave and set out to explore. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to be rejected. Our Lord embraced that fear and took it to the cross, and He has won that battle for you. And so, my dear friends, be brave, be bold, speak your mind, and be your authentic self at all times. I will leave you with one of my mother's favorite Bible verses from the first letter of Peter, chapter 5, verse 6 to 7, which goes like this: Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that He may lift you up in due time. Cast all your anxiety on Him, because He cares for you. God bless. Wishing you a wonderful day ahead.